All right, welcome back on Africa Business Radio. It's still Rachel and Winston.
That's right.
And we had earlier told you that we have our guest segment in just a moment. And we're talking about real estate investment and the role of millennials in all of this. We know that millennials have changed the way things are done from last year.
Absolutely.
In every single sector. And real estate is one of those sectors. And so we'll be having someone talk to us about the real estate space in Africa generally and the role that millennials are playing. We're having David Adeleke joining us to better understand how exactly millennials have shaped the real estate sector and, what could be better and what the future would be like.
Absolutely. And there's no other person or no better person to talk about this than David Adeleke, who is a writer, communication strategist, and media analyst with over 7 years of experience. Now, currently, David is the head of communications at Eko Atlantic City, is the author of Communique, a media analysis newsletter, a columnist with How We Made It in Africa, also a communications volunteer with Stand to End Rape Initiative, which I have seen a lot of their amazing work, by the way, so that's fantastic stuff. Previously, he was also editor, Business Insider Sub-Saharan Africa, copy editor at Ventures Africa, and editor at techcabal.com. That's not all. David is also a media and journalism fellow with the Charles Koch Institute. He holds a degree in mass communication from Covenant University, a certificate in storytelling for modern media from Yale University, and a certificate in view and integrated brand experience from Orange Academy, Lagos. That's such a very impressive
That's
profile,
a lot. Good morning, David. Good to have you on the show.
Good morning.
Good to have you on Breakfast Connect with Winston and Rachel on Africa Business Radio. And we were about to have a very interesting conversation. So we're talking about real estate investment and the African millennial. So first off, let's start with ESG. What is ESG for real estate in Nigeria?
So there are different ways to think about it, but primarily ESG is real estate companies thinking about the impact of their portfolio, the impact of their projects,
right,
and the environment,
Right.
And within the context of where I work, Eko Atlantic City, we're building a new city on the coast of Lagos. And for us, ESG is designing a city that is environmentally friendly, a city that takes into account the current trend of conversations around sustainability. So a very, very good example would be us making sure that for every few meters of road, we have a tree lining it. So lots of trees around the city. One of the buildings in the city, the Alpha 1 building, is EDGE certified. EDGE is Excellence in Design for Greater Efficiencies, and that was issued by the International Finance Corporation. And essentially, that means the building uses 20% less resources and water, energy resources, and energy in embodied materials. So basically, that is what ESG is within a nutshell, making sure that you're building something that is friendly to the environment. You're using resources that are friendly to the environment. And then in terms of investment, making sure that your investments take into account the way the world is going now, climate change.
Climate change.
You're very conscious about the environmental impact of your work as a real estate firm. So that's what it is in a nutshell.
Fantastic.
So a lot is obviously going on in the real estate sector, which is why we would like to know where we are now in the real estate. But just before you answer that question, let's perhaps look at what the status quo was, before millennials became a factor. How was the property market before we saw, all of this traction in that space, millennials rising up? What was it like before now?
I mean, not much has changed in terms of how people buy land and build. I mean, you can factor in different contexts in different cities, right? Different people build in different ways in different cities, but especially in Lagos. Maybe earlier, some places were earmarked for business. A place like Victoria Island was built to somewhat be a GRA.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Marina was built for business, but what you've seen over time is a mixture of business and residential.
And residential, yes. Absolutely.
Residential, which is also something that we are really taking into account with our work at Eko Atlantic. We're building what you call a mixed-use city. So people live and work within the city. In fact, that is the slogan of Eko Atlantic: live and work. So that's what you see over time. Places are built for certain purposes, but because more people move into those urban areas, they start to evolve from just residential to residential and commercial, or just commercial to residential and commercial. And you see that a lot in Lagos. So when you bring in millennials don't own a lot of property. A lot of the property that you see in Lagos belongs to a very, very small
elite class
subset of people, right? Not just the elite class, but the much older generation. The younger generation like ours don't yet have that purchasing power, that economic power to own property on a massive scale. So what you find is millennials investing in parts in real estate projects. So for example, you'll find that a company is developing an estate. Instead of someone buying land within that estate, they instead purchase a finished product. So that's kind of the trend that you see, as opposed to the older generation where people buy land and actually develop on their land. Now, more often than not, you see companies developing. So developers develop, and then people buy finished apartments or buildings from those developers. Or in some cases, you lease for 15 years.
Number of years,
and then so you own it for a number of years, and then you're able to reap the benefits off of that. So that's kind of the change that you'll see in the real estate market if you look at it over a long period of time.
All right. So looking at changing things further, we just rightly noted how most of the buildings and investments so far have been done by the older generation, right? And we're looking at, involving more young people. So in your professional opinion, does the present system we have afford young Nigerians the opportunity to own properties? Because one of the major things that keep coming up when we talk about young Nigerians, or trying to convince young Nigerians or millennials to go into, real estate investment, is affordability. As you rightly mentioned, economic purchasing power is definitely not the same. So, but do you think that the present system favors the young Nigerians to own, properties? And if not, how can we change that going forward?
Okay, so two things. One, real estate is not cheap anywhere. It's not cheap in any part of the world, right? Even in more developed countries, real estate is expensive. But the second thing that they have, the second point is they have something going for them that we don't have yet here in Nigeria. And I'll expand on that point.
All right.
In more developed countries, there are established credit systems and mortgage systems, so people can take out a loan to buy a house and then pay it back over a period of time at a good interest rate. But what you find here, that's it's not that established, and more often than not, you find that so it's now that the credit system in Nigeria is just gaining traction, with the investment of financial technology companies that are, and microfinance banks that are now becoming fintech companies, issuing out loans to people benchmarked against their monthly income. So that is starting to pick up, and I reckon that with time, that is going to infiltrate the mortgage and the real estate market. And you can already see some trends. For example, you have startups that are working around co-living, co-ownership, and all of that. You have fiber and split that allow people pay rent now. They allow people pay rent instrumentally. I mean, these are still elementary level innovations that are going on. You have a company like Seso Global. I know there is a company called Bungalow that is working to, that are innovating around the mortgage industry in Nigeria. So they're still elementary level innovations, but with the way fintech has matured so fast in the last few years, I reckon that the same will come into real estate if because real estate is one of the most profitable investment options in Nigeria. It's far more profitable than 90% of what, or 95% of anything else that is out there. So with more investment in real estate innovation, or investment in in options, creating options for people to get into real estate, it will pick up. But as it is now, it's not the most ideal scenario. So anyone who is investing in real estate is much higher up the social ladder, and they have means that other people don't.
Absolutely.
But with time, the options will become more democratized, and then you see things will pick up.
All right, now speaking of measures, what are measures in place for classes order reform, increased flexibility to meet changing demands?
Okay, so I can't speak to that because that's it's a little out of my area of
coverage,
of specialization. So
okay.
All right, fair enough. However, so just to further add to, involvement of millennials, how do we get millennials to become super comfortable investing in real estate, especially because a lot of people still don't understand the market? Yes, you could confidently and comfortably say, oh, it's great investment, it's way better than many other investments out there, but a lot of young people don't share that sentiment. They rather invest in something that will give them profit in another month, or something that gives them profit weekly. They don't fully understand or grasp how it's great long-term investment, and there are many other advantages. So how do we get?
I'm not sure that I agree with the idea that young people, they don't see the benefit. I think most young people see. They know the benefit of investing in real estate. They just don't have the means. They don't have the option.
But
what I know. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm getting to. So I know that there are options that they don't now know about. So the work is in getting people to understand, or to even know what the options are, and then to understand how real estate investment works. But I don't think young Nigerians are lacking, or young Africans generally are lacking in the area of interest. It's in means. So when you now talk about means, you have platforms like, I know that I use a platform called RiceVest. Okay. RiceVest allows me to invest in dollars in real estate, right? And you can do it for as low as $10. $10 is 4,000 something, right? So for as low as $10, you can start to invest in real estate. So there are more options like that. There are cooperatives. I belong to a cooperative that does real estate investment. Right. So the cooperative, and it's not the type of cooperative where we everybody saves their salary and they give one person. That's not it. This cooperative finds real estate investment opportunities. So let's say there's an opportunity to invest in a property worth 100 million naira. So what that cooperative does is it pulls together that amount of investment from its members, and then it puts it into the property. So after a year, or after 2 years, or after 5 years, you get your 14% or your 15% or your 20%, whatever it is, interest rate. Right? And so the money is coming back to you. You can now choose to reinvest it in something else. So there are many options like that. There are so many options like that. And there are platforms that are dedicated to teaching people how to invest. I know a lady called Shubomi Plumpter. Shubomi Plumpter devotes, she has an investment course, and part of that course goes deep. It's not surface level knowledge. It goes deep into showing people what real estate investment looks like. I know a platform called Money Africa. Money Africa teaches people how to invest. So there are platforms like that. It's just getting people to know more about them. And some of these platforms are paid. Some of them are free. So it's just really bringing people to the consciousness that there are these options, and this is what you get, what you stand to benefit from using this, from taking advantage of this option. I mean, for RiceVest does annual interest rate. So if I invest $1,000 today in RiceVest's real estate fund, I'm getting 14 to 15% ROI on that investment, and that's amazing. So 14% of $1,000 is $140, which is something. It's not it is something. I mean, if you do the math, multiply $140 by Naira, it is a lot within a year. So if you, let's say you have the capacity to do $2,000, you're getting $280 back within a year. Do you understand? So there are so many options like this. It's just giving people the knowledge and awareness of these options.
Right. So another major challenge would be hiking property prices, and I don't know if it's because there's no meeting point between regulators and investors or property owners, but that some people arbitrarily just have ridiculously expensive rates. That's a major problem. So how do we tackle that? What's the way forward with that?
So it's an interesting concern, but the thing with real estate pricing is it's often based on demand.
Right.
Do you understand? So if people are pricing their properties at a certain rate, it's because they know that there is demand, right, for that kind of property. It's another situation entirely if something is highly priced but not worth. It's not worth that amount. That's an issue. But usually, what you find is people who price their properties at a certain
a choice location
amount. They know that this is worth it. It's either the location. Right, the property itself may not be great, but the location is magnificent.
Right,
they know, or the network of people who will be living in that area. So there are many things that go into the thought process of setting prices for real estate projects. Right. So again, it's not necessarily about the some places are exorbitantly priced, right? They don't reflect the reality of the market. But what you'll find over time is that those people will be forced to embrace reality at some point. Or, I mean, people usually take out loans on their construction project, and if you're not able to pay back your loan because your nobody is buying from you, then the bank will foreclose and take over, and then they will now sell that property at a much better rate.
Yeah.
So do you understand? So it's not necessarily about the cost. It is a lot, but those costs often reflect demand.
Yeah, but there's still the situation.
They often reflect the cost of development as well.
Right. Yeah, sorry, real quick. There's still the situation where you have some people with just ridiculously outrageous prices. People complain of these things every time. Yes, the location is great. Say, for example, a place in Lagos, you want to get something in Ikoyi or VI. Yes, it's a great location, or maybe Ikeja. But however, there are people who take advantage of that and fully exploit it. So you have an outrageous amount, and there's nobody checking you. So that's why I pointed when I was introducing the question. I pointed, is it a situation where
regulation?
Regulation. Yes, because I mean, I own the property and I can pull whatever now.
It's a hotly debated topic, government regulation in real estate, because then, once you invite government regulations, it's a different kettle of fish, right? The government now starts to set prices, and then the government's prices do not accurately reflect demand. There are pros and cons for each option.
True.
So, I don't have a firm position on that topic yet. I would have to think more about it.
Right.
But I know for sure from experience that once you invite government regulations into an industry, you are it's a different kettle of fish entirely, and it just leads to something else that you may not foresee.
Right. No, I understand that. Absolutely.
All right, David. So just before I let you go now, I mean, say I'm ready, I'm set to invest in real estate now. What's the first move I need to make? And what risks should I consider? Of course, we know that the risk in real estate is very minimal, but we still need to look out for them. So what risks should I consider, like if I'm ready right now to invest in real estate? What's the first move I need to make? Okay,
I would say you start from one of the platforms that I mentioned. So a platform like RiceBest. Start small.
Okay.
So test the water. Start small. And then if you have considerably larger resources, you could buy off a property from a developer. Lots of people are developing further down the coast of Lagos, Adeleke, all those places.
Absolutely.
And from Lekki 2 used to be like that. Lekki phase 1 used to be desolate.
Yeah.
At some point, and then it developed into what it is today. So it's always a risk. Investment is a risk, right? Risk and reward are two sides of the same coin in investment. So the higher the risk, the higher the reward. So if you're a low risk investor, you know that you're getting low returns. But if you're investing in real estate, which is in some ways the returns are very good. It's also still risky because you can't really predict what tomorrow will be like. But it's relatively safe. It's relatively safe to invest in real estate because the demand is there. So you can now invest through one of the developers. You buy property from them, or you buy something off plan. So there are off plan options where you buy at a much cheaper rate versus when the place is complete. And then you now decide to sell the property maybe 2 or 3 years after. So on one hand, you start small, start with the investment platforms. On the other hand, if you have more resources, you can do it with a developer. So that would be my advice for someone who wants to get into real estate development. But always do your due diligence. Always do your due diligence. If you are not comfortable doing something, don't do it. If you're looking for smashing returns, you should temper your expectations. But start small, and if you can, purchase an apartment or buy something off plan, and then you can resell at a much higher value later.
Interesting.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much, David, for all of this information on real estate. I'm sure a lot of persons are listening in, and I'm sure they'll be checking out Rise First at this point. Thank you so much, David, for joining us for conversation. I do hope that you'll be available for further conversations should this come up sometime later on the show.
Where to find me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, so David,
thank you very much.
David Adeleke is a writer, communication strategist, and media analyst with over 7 years of experience. He's currently the head of communications at Eko Atlantic City, author of Communique, a media analysis newsletter, and a columnist with How We Made It in Africa.